All right, Shalom. I want to give all praises unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Wahar Kakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles at Great Millstone, those who rule well and who taught me this truth. Salutations to the brothers stiffly pushing this one truth out there. And Shalom to the rest of the 1/3 remnant of men, women, and children who are believing on the words of Yahweh Shah as we await this second Exodus. All right, this is your brother Rakak Gabar. All right, and I'm back at you again. All right, with another lesson that will be entitled something along the lines of the tree of life and immortality. All right. And the tree of knowledge of good and evil. OK. And ultimately, man, what I want to do in this lesson is go over. All right. The tree of life. All right. As well as the tree of knowledge of good and evil. OK. And ultimately what that means. OK. And what that actually represents. OK. But as you see depicted in front of you, all right, is ultimately a tree. OK, it's ultimately a tree. And then it's ultimately a brain on top of the, on the top of the tree. OK, but understand, man, what we're going to gain the clarity of in this lesson is that the tree of life. OK, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. All right, ultimately represents, OK, one's understanding. OK, or what takes place. All right, in our minds. OK. Contrary to Christianity, man, the trees, the tree of life, all right, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil that were in the garden, okay, back when you read about Adam and Eve, okay, they weren't literal trees, man. Now, there were literal trees back then, of course, where we, that bore different fruits, okay, that we would eat, okay, but that was spiritual, okay, when it refers to the tree of life, okay, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil, okay? But Christianity would have one to believe that those were literal trees, man, because they don't have the understanding of these scriptures, okay? But what you're going to gain the clarity of, all right, Lord willing, through this lesson is that ultimately represented, okay, our way of thinking, all right, or understanding, okay, that took place, all right, and that takes place in our minds, okay? Because what you come to find out is that after Eve was tempted of the serpent, okay, and the serpent ultimately tempted Eve to eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, okay, that's when we got kicked out the garden, okay, that's when we sinned, as scriptures say, right, that's when sin entered into the world, okay, for us Israelites, all right, and when you understand the scriptures, man, scriptures tell you how sin is the transgression of the law, okay. So before we ate of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, then what does that mean? All right. That means we hadn't sinned before that point. OK, our minds were not corrupt or polluted before that point. OK, because why, man, we were created to be the light. OK, the children of the light is what scriptures call. All right. Refer to the Israelites. OK, the sons of God. OK, so before sin entered into our world, okay, as Israelites, all right, our minds, okay, our way of thinking and understanding was only aligned, all right, and tuned into the vibration, okay, of the tree of life, okay. Our way of thinking was that of righteousness, man, and thinking, all right, in the vibration of the spirit, okay, and the fruits of the spirit, okay, which I'm going to cover those things in this lesson, all right, but first, all right, let's go ahead and start, all right, in the beginning where it all began, okay? This is the book of Genesis. All right, this is the book of Genesis, chapter 2 and 9. It says, and out of the ground made Yahweh power to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, okay? Now, these, that was literal, man, like, the trees, okay, that bear fruits, okay, yeah, that's what we were eating, okay? Back during, the Garden of Eden. OK, but now it's going to talk about the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And what you have to understand is that this is spiritual. OK, this is spiritual. All right. It says the tree of life also in the midst of the garden and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. OK, these weren't two mystical trees, that gave power out, that were just on a whole nother level than other trees. Nah, man, this is represented by this picture you see depicted, okay, our minds, man, or our way of thinking and understanding, life. Okay. Okay. The tree of life represented a certain way of thinking. Okay. And the tree of knowledge of good and evil, okay, ultimately represented a different way. Okay. Or in other words, the tree of knowledge of good and evil represented one's mind being corrupted with darkness. Okay. And the tree of life represented one's mind, okay, being completely pure, all right, with that light, okay, which is this truth, man. All right. Genesis chapter 2 and 17. Here's the point. It says, verse 16, and Yahweh power commanded the man, all right, which was Adam, okay, before the nation of Israel, after the flood, were referred to as the Israelites. We were known as the sons of God, or Adamites. Okay. It says, and Yahweh power commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat. Okay. But of the tree of knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die. Okay. Thou shalt surely die. Now, we understand, when you read the story of Adam and Eve, man, when Eve was tempted of the serpent and he brought we're just going ahead and for the sake of the story, when he brought that fruit, okay, that corrupted fruit unto Eve, all right, what happened? And it talks about she ate of it, okay. Well, she didn't die on the spot, right? She didn't drop dead, okay. She didn't just instantly die, okay. So what does that tell us, man? That ultimately the Most High tells you that is when sin entered into the world, okay. That is when sin entered into the world, all right. And as we understand, man, sin means that you're transgressing the law. So what that meant for our nation was that now we would die. Okay. We would begin to die. Okay. Because when you read through the scriptures, ultimately, the Most High created us Israelites to be immortal. Okay. And it tells you that. Okay. We were created to be an image of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shah, and we were created to be immortal. Okay. That's why during the Garden of Eden, man, before the flood, we would live up to 800, 900 years old. Okay. Well, you understand the story was written, okay. For the sake of the story, we were subject to going off. Okay. Eve was subject to understanding, okay, and following after the ways of that serpent. Okay. And then she brought those ways or philosophies of the heathen unto Adam. Okay. And that's when sin entered into our world, because what you pick up on through the scriptures is that the constant theme our nation would be commit idolatry, man. And that was a big no-no, all right, for the Most High. Okay. So much so that it's, one of the 10 commandments, okay, that we're not supposed to commit idolatry. Okay. What is idolatry? It's worshiping these false deities. Okay. These false gods, man. Christianity, Islam, zoology, all right, New Age theories, Buddhism, Hinduism, okay, all of those things, Catholicism, okay, all of those things are idolatry, okay, and understand that there's nothing new under the sun, okay. So those heathen back then, all right, during the time of the Garden of Eden, man, they had their own ways and practices and philosophies, okay, that they practice. Okay, so what happened is the same shit you see happening in these times. Okay, wherein the Israelites, all right, continue to follow after the ways of the heathen. Okay, and become corrupt. All right, we were created to be the children of light. All right, that's what scriptures tell you, man. We were the ones, all right, as Israelite men, okay, Israelite gods, that our whole purpose of being sent down here to this earth was to uphold that divine covenant that we received when we were in the wilderness for 40 years. Okay, our purpose was to uphold that divine law, man. And that's why the Most High tells you through Moses that that would be our wisdom in the sight of these nations. Okay, the fact that we had the law, the divine law, okay, from the creator of the universe. Okay, that's what made us a holy people. Okay, that's what made us set apart and different, man, because we come from the lineage of the creator of the universe. Okay, that God seed line. Okay, and we were supposed to be that light. Okay, but what happened from the beginning, okay, all the way up to these times now, all right, the children of light have been corrupted with darkness. Okay, and that darkness is by way of our minds, okay, had been polluted, okay, into thinking and following after the ways of the heathen. Okay, this is the book of Sirach, chapter 19 and 19. It says the knowledge of the commandments. Okay, and before I continue, man, what is knowledge? Okay, ultimately, knowledge is something that you know. Okay, knowledge means to know. Okay, what you know or information or data that you receive, okay, is stored in your mind. Okay, what you know is stored in your mind, man. So understand that this tree, okay, the tree of life, okay, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil, man, that represents, okay, your thinking, your understanding, okay, what you know, okay, and before the serpent, okay, had tempted Eve, polluted Eve's mind, and then she went on to pollute Adam's mind, okay, we had only known, all right, the tree of life. That was the only one we were supposed to be eating of, okay? We had only known righteousness, man. And that's what you have to understand as Israelites, okay? You so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, man, this is you, okay? We are they, the children of light, okay, who weren't supposed to be polluted and corrupted, all right, with all the wicked things, all right, the lust of the flesh and the carnality, okay, of the heathen, okay, because we are different, okay? Out of all 18 nations, we were a chosen godly nation, man, a holy nation, okay? It says the knowledge of the commandments of the Lord is the doctrine of life, okay? That tree of life, man, all right, is the knowledge of the commandments of the Lord. So understand the reason why the Most High tells us that, that the day when we eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, that we would die, is because the scriptures tell you that the wages of sin is death. Okay. So the reason we die, man, is because sin, all right, is entered into the world. Okay. And our minds are being polluted and corrupt, all right, with wickedness. Okay. And that's the reason why we die. That's the reason why in Genesis, all right, verse 2 and 17, it says, but of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die, because the wages of sin is death. Okay. So if before that, we clearly were not sinning, meaning we knew of the knowledge we knew, going back, Salakia, we had the knowledge of the commandments, okay, which represents the tree of life. That's what we had known, man, before our minds were tainted with other ways of thinking and other philosophies, okay? When you put that into modern terms, man, ultimately, when you grow up, all right, most of us, or myself, for example, okay, we're brought up under Christianity, man, thinking that the Jesus, the Christ, is some white man, okay? And they tell us all these stories, but they don't let you know, all right, or they don't paint the picture that those stories are of our people, okay? That's an example of our minds being tainted, man. But it says the knowledge of the commandments of the Lord is the doctrine of life, okay? And they that do things that please him shall receive the fruit of the tree of immortality, okay? So the fruit of the tree of immortality, man, represents the tree of life. Why? Because as we're about to grab it, okay, when we received the law, when we were in the wilderness for 40 years, okay, when we received the law, the Most High tells you that he put before us life and death. Okay. Why? Because if you kept the law, right, the tree of life, those commandments, all right, operating in the spirit, it would lead to life. It would lead to immortality. Okay. Eternal life. Okay. Crowns, all right, being placed upon our heads. Okay. And all of those things. But if you broke the law, that's sin, man. And that leads to death. Okay. It only leads to death. All right. Okay. Bro, this is Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 15. Okay. And this is after we received the law from Moses. All right. It says, verse 15, see, I have set before thee this day life and good, and death and evil. Okay. Life and good, and death and evil. Okay. Because why? We just read in Sirach, all right, the 19th chapter, man, that the knowledge of the commandments of the Lord is the doctrine of life. Okay. So keeping and upholding that divine law leads to life, man. It's good and life. when you transgress that law, okay, and you allow wickedness to enter into your mind, okay, or the philosophies and the ways of the heathen, that leads to what? Death, okay? Sin and death, right? Death and evil, okay? All right? And that's the reason, man, it's called the tree of knowledge of good and evil, okay? Because we had only known good. We didn't know evil, okay? We didn't know what it meant to sin, to break the law, okay? Because we weren't on that. We didn't know what we didn't know what that led to. And that's why the Most High told us in the Garden of Eden that the day that we eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, okay, or in other words, the day you start doing what the heathen are doing and giving into their philosophies and ways of thinking is going to be the time, that's when death is going to enter into the world of you Israelites, okay? Because now you're breaking the law, man. You're breaking that divine law, okay? And that leads to death. The wages of sin, okay? The wages of transgressing the law leads to death, okay? Death and evil, okay? All right? And that's the reason, man, why I'm going to grab this parable, all right, of Yahweh Shah. All right, he gave a parable talking about seeds, okay, being planted, right? He talks about the seeds being sown, and ultimately those seeds are sown in your mind, okay? When the serpent brought those philosophies unto Eve, he planted seeds in her mind, all right, corrupt seeds, if you will, and it polluted her mind, okay? It polluted her mind, man, with evil, okay? And now what we're trying to do in these times, man, all right, the men of the Lord have been waking back up by Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai, all right, is to get our people, you so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, okay, we're trying to plant seeds in your mind, okay, so that the tree of life, okay, can once again take root, all right, and grow in your mind, okay, so when your way of thinking will be changed, man, and reprogrammed, okay, so you'll be born again. Okay, born again. Okay. And ultimately that's why I like this picture here, okay, because it's ultimately it's the tree of life, okay, but it also says the fruits of the spirit, okay, because what does a tree do? All right, it ultimately, most trees, okay, produce fruits, okay, and this is what the men of the Lord, all right, or the elect would be doing, man. Once we learned this truth, all right, this knowledge, okay, the tree of life, okay, we will then produce fruits, okay, by speaking these words and planting seeds into the minds of others, which will then take root and grow, all right, and it would be a cycle, okay? That's what the purpose is, man. But yeah, you go into the fruits of the spirit, okay, that you read about in Galatians, the 5th chapter, all right? These are some of the things that we are to be thinking on, man. This is how our mind is supposed to be programmed, okay? We have to have a mind of understanding, okay? Understand that the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil, they weren't literal physical trees, okay? Have to have understanding, man, proper understanding of these scriptures, okay? Joy, faith, okay? Victory, all right? Meekness, gentleness, love, right? This is how our minds are to be programmed, okay? This is because what you read in Galatians 5 is that this is one way of thinking, okay, ultimately the tree of life, and then there's another way of thinking, all right, the tree of good and evil, representing, all right, a corrupt mind or a corrupt way of thinking, okay? When you're thinking about, all you're thinking about is the lust of the flesh and carnality, okay? You read in Galatians 5, okay, I'm going to grab a little bit, I won't read all of it, okay, but it says Galatians 5:16. This I say then, walk in the spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. Okay, so if your mind are constantly thinking on these things, okay, then you're not going to be doing contrary. Okay, you're not going to be thinking about the lust of the flesh. Okay, now we're not perfect, so some things will still seep into your mind. Okay, because we can't control our thoughts, but you don't have to give energy over to that, man. And what you can do, all right, is actively think on these things, okay? All right? It says, for the flesh lusteth against the spirit, and the spirit against the flesh. And these are contrary the one to the other, so that ye cannot do the things that ye would. Okay? Sometimes our thoughts, get the best of us until we end up acting on that and doing something stupid. Okay? We end up transgressing. All right. And then we got to repent. Okay. And get our minds back on track, man. It says verse 18, but if ye be led of the Spirit, ye are not under the law. Okay. What does that mean? Ultimately, man, if you're a spiritual being, if you're literally striving to be spiritual, man, these are the things that are going to be on your mind. Okay. And if you have these things on your mind, if your mind is programmed in this manner, you're not going to think, okay, to do anything contrary to the law. Okay. And that's why Yahweh Shah said, all right, the sum of the law is to love your brother as yourself. Okay. Love your fellow Israelite brothers and sisters as yourself. Okay. Because you would do what? You would do things that will be beneficial to them and to yourself, man. And you wouldn't do anything to harm them. Okay. You wouldn't go out trying to commit adultery, right? Sleeping with a woman or a man. Okay. You wouldn't go out stealing from them. You wouldn't go out killing them. Okay. You wouldn't commit idolatry. You wouldn't follow these other gods. Okay. Because you wouldn't follow these other gods because the Most High tells you that if you love him, you would keep his commandments. Okay. So if you are operating in the spirit, okay, some of the fruits of the spirit are love, joy, peace, goodness, and all of these things. Okay. Wisdom. All right. So you become a wise person. All right. You actively try to act, okay, using wisdom in matters. Yeah. If you do these things, you're not under the law. Okay. Because you're not going to do anything contrary to it. Okay. And that's what that goes into. Okay. And it goes into the works of the flesh, okay? Adultery, fornication, uncleanness, idolatry, wrath, strife, so on and so forth, man. You can read about them. But understand, if you are doing these things, okay, you are doing what is contrary to the law, okay? And doing these things, you're doing what is contrary to the fruits of the spirit, right? And that's why it says the spirit wars against the flesh, okay? That's that tree of life, man. Ultimately versus that tree of darkness, okay, or the tree of knowledge of good and evil, okay? And then he goes into the fruits of the spirit, okay? It says, but the fruit of the spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law, okay? And we just went over why it says that, okay? Now, are you supposed to keep the law? Of course. Right? Of course you're supposed to keep the law, but scriptures tells you that if you love the Most High, you're going to keep the law. Okay. And if you're operating and your mind is tuned in to the vibration of the fruits of the spirit, okay, then you're not going to do anything contrary to it. Okay. You're not going to do anything contrary to it. Okay. That I did want to grab this in the book of Matthew, okay, dealing with the parable, all right, Yahweh Shah gave, okay, because these seeds that will be planted in one's mind, okay. Matthew 13, verse 3, it says, and he spake many things unto them in parables, saying, behold, a sower went forth to sow. And when he sowed, some seeds fell by the wayside, and the fowls came and devoured them up. Okay, so when you think of these things, this is a parable, okay? You have to think, all right? You have to see spiritually, all right? You have to have ears, of understanding, okay? So these seeds, man, representing with this truth going out, okay? There are those Israelites that this truth does not resonate with their spirit, okay? Because ultimately, the Most High, from the beginning, he created them just to not understand it, man. To where they're just going to stay in that darkness. Okay. But whereas those of us, okay, who can receive of these things, we're being brought back into this light. Okay. The tree of life of immortality. Okay. It says some fell upon stony places where they had not much earth, and forthwith they sprung up because they had no deepness of earth. Okay. So there are some Israelites, man, who know that they're Israelites. Okay, they'll throw on the fringes, okay, and they'll do surface level things, but there is no depth to them, okay? They don't actually seek out the dark sayings, okay? They don't actually try to grow spiritually, okay? They stay at one level, okay? That represents the seeds that are falling where there's not much earth, okay? It's not that the seeds that are planted aren't going to spring up and produce the proper amount of the proper fruits, okay? It says, and forthwith they sprung up because they had no depthness of earth. Okay. It says, and when the sun was up, they were scorched because they had no root. They withered away. Okay. Translation, man, going into these times of trouble, Jacob's trouble and his great tribulation that's about to see on the earth, when all hell breaks loose, they're going to be those Israelites, man, who know that they're Israelites, but they call on the incorrect names. Okay. They call on Yahweh and Yah and Jehovah, okay, and Jesus, okay, but they knew they was Israelites, okay, they knew that the Messiah was a so-called black man from the tribe of Judah, okay, they knew of these things, okay, but there's no depth to them, okay, they didn't actually grow, all right, to get the proper understanding, okay, of this truth, okay. It says, and some fell among thorns, and the thorns sprung up and choked them, all right. Because ultimately, there are those that know they're Israelites, okay, who are under the wrong teachers, man, who are under the false prophets, all right, who don't tell them things that will prepare them for the times that are coming on this earth, okay, who don't go into the prophecies, okay, who don't go into, telling them what the mark of the beast is, okay, and all of these different things. Okay. Yeah. Those thorns, man, these false prophets and false teachers, okay, are destroying their congregation. But here's the point. Okay. But other fell into good ground and brought forth fruit, some an 100-fold, some 60-fold, some 30-fold. Who hath ears to hear, let him hear. And when Yahushua says that, man, he who hath ears to hear, let him hear. That's literally like a direct, you have to have a higher level of consciousness to be able to understand these scriptures. Okay, period. All right. The Spirit's not dealing with you, man. You're not going to understand these things. All right. So it says, but others fell into good ground and brought forth fruit, some an 100-fold, some 60-fold, some 30-fold. So the men of the Lord, man, when you hear this message as a man of the Lord, you're supposed to go out teaching as well. Okay. And waking up believers, planting seeds. All right. And those seeds take root. All right. And then they grow and produce fruit. OK. And that's that cycle, man, that tree of life. OK. All right. All right. So we're going ahead and end it off. All right. In the book of Ezekiel 36 and 26. OK. Because we did just read in verse 5 how some seeds fell upon stony places where they had not much earth. OK. So let's go to Ezekiel 36 and 26. All right. Because this goes into the time wherein the Most High is going to deliver, all right, and gather, all right, the remnant of the elect of his people, okay, during his second Exodus, all right. Ezekiel 36 and 26, it says a new heart, okay, or in other words, a new mind or understanding. When you click on that word heart, it goes back into the Hebrew word lob. It says inner man, mind, understanding. Okay, so he's going to give us a new understanding, all right, or mind, right? Let's read. It says, a new heart also will I give you, and a new spirit will I put within you, and I will take away the stony heart out of your flesh, and I will give you an heart of flesh. Okay, and I will put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my statutes, and ye shall keep my judgments and do them. Okay. And ye shall dwell in the land that I gave to your fathers, right? The holy land, the promised land of Israel. Okay. And ye shall be my people, and I will be your power. Okay. It says, and I will also save you from all your uncleanness. Okay. I will call for the corn and will increase it and lay no famine upon you. But understand, man, the Most High is going to cleanse all of our minds. Okay. Starting with the hopeful elect, okay, those of us who, Lord willing, receive of those new bodies, all right, at the time of the second Exodus, when Yahushua gets here, okay, yeah, we're going to receive a new body, man, okay, to wherein when you read Hebrews 8 and 8, it tells you that the Most High is going to put that new covenant inside of us, okay? He's going to literally make it to where we're all going to be able to keep the tree of life, okay, perfectly, okay, to wherein, what happened with Eve back then, okay, will never be able to happen again for the nation of Israel, okay? It starts with the elect, okay? And even when the the 2/3 are reborn in the kingdom. They're going to come out keeping, all right, the commandments, all right, in those statutes. Okay, perfectly. All right. And we just read that, man. The Most High is going to put his spirit in us. All right. And that's why it says, and I will take away the stony heart. Because if seeds fall on stony ground, they're not going to grow. Okay. That tree is not going to grow. So the Most High is going to take that stony part away, man. And that tree of life is going to grow. Okay. And you read that in Hebrews 8:8, when the Most High talks about that new covenant, man, that he's going to put inside of us Israelites. All right. Which means he's going to make us completely perfect immortals. Okay. And we're going to be the children of light that we were created to be from the jump. Okay. We're no longer going to be tainted with darkness. Okay. Or uncleanness, as we just read. We're going to be perfect. Okay. Our minds are all going to be crafted and formed in this manner, man, where we're just constantly producing the fruits of the spirit. Okay. And on a complete level. Okay. True enlightenment. Okay. Like I went over in my previous lesson. Okay. But yeah, man, that's the point. All right. And Lord's willing, this lesson was edifying. All right. I want to give all praises unto Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shah, Waha, Rakakadash. Shalom until the next one.